The miller's daughter, and the name that set her free. There once lived a poor miller who worked hard every single day, grinding wheat and corn into flour for the people in his village. He had a small mill with a creaky old wheel that turned slowly in the stream, and though he worked from sunrise to sunset, he never seemed to have quite enough money to live comfortably. But the miller did have one treasure that made him proud every single day, and that was his daughter, a young woman with bright eyes, quick hands, and a mind that worked faster than anyone else's in the entire village. The miller's daughter was clever in ways that surprised everyone who knew her. When the village children got lost in the forest, she was the one who figured out how to lead them home by following the way the moss grew on the trees. When the baker's oven broke right before a festival, she thought of a way to bake bread using hot stones and covered pots. When storms damaged the bridge over the river, she designed a temporary crossing using ropes and wooden planks that held until the carpenters could build a proper one. She had a gift for looking at problems and seeing solutions that no one else had considered. But the miller, though he loved his daughter dearly, had one significant flaw. He liked to boast and exaggerate to make himself seem more important than he really was. When he went to the tavern in the evenings, he would tell the other men stories about his mill that made it sound twice as large as it actually was. He would talk about his family as if they were descended from nobility instead of being simple, hard-working folk. And most of all, he loved to brag about his daughter. One day, the king happened to be traveling through the village with his royal procession. The miller, seeing this as his chance to impress someone truly important, pushed his way to the front of the crowd and bowed deeply. The king, who was young and not particularly interested in stopping, barely glanced at the miller. But the miller, desperate for attention and recognition, called out loudly, "Your Majesty, I have a daughter who possesses the most remarkable talent in all the kingdom." The king paused, mildly curious despite himself. "Oh, and what talent might that be?" he asked, expecting to hear about sewing or singing, or perhaps exceptional beauty. But the miller's mouth moved faster than his common sense, and before he could stop himself, he said the most foolish thing he had ever said in his entire life. "My daughter can spin straw into gold." The moment the words left his mouth, the miller knew he had made a terrible mistake. But it was too late. The king's eyes lit up with interest, for he was a young king who loved wealth and treasures above all else. "Straw into gold," he repeated, his voice filled with excitement. "That is indeed a remarkable talent. I must see this for myself. Bring your daughter to the palace tomorrow." The miller returned home that evening feeling sick with worry and regret. When he told his daughter what he had done, her face went pale. "Father," she said quietly, "why would you say such a thing? I cannot spin straw into gold. No one can do such a thing. It's impossible." The miller wrung his hands and apologized over and over, but apologies could not undo what had been done. The next morning, royal guards arrived to escort the miller's daughter to the palace. When she arrived, the king led her to a small room in one of the palace towers. The room was completely filled with straw, piled from floor to ceiling, with only a small spinning wheel sitting in the middle. "Here is your task," the king said, his voice both excited and stern. "You will spin all the straw into gold by morning. If you succeed, you will be rewarded. If you fail, you will be severely punished for your father's lies." He left the room and locked the door behind him. The miller's daughter sat down beside the spinning wheel and looked at the mountains of straw surrounding her. She had spun flax into thread many times and wool into yarn, but she had absolutely no idea how to turn straw into gold. It was impossible, a thing from fairy tales and old stories, not something any real person could do. As the reality of her situation sank in, tears began to roll down her cheeks. She was trapped in this room, expected to do the impossible, and if she failed, she would be punished for her father's foolish boasting. Just as her tears began to fall more freely, she heard a strange sound. The door had not opened, but suddenly there was someone else in the room with her. She looked up and saw the oddest little man she had ever seen. He was no taller than her waist, with a long nose, bright eyes that seemed too clever by half, and a mischievous smile that suggested he knew secrets no one else knew. "Good evening, miller's daughter," he said in a high, thin voice. "Why are you crying?" She wiped her eyes and explained her impossible situation. The little man listened, nodding thoughtfully, and then he said something that made her heart leap with hope. "Spinning straw into gold? "Oh, that's easy enough. I can do that for you." The miller's daughter could hardly believe her ears. "You can? Truly?" she asked. The little man's smile grew wider. "Of course I can. But nothing comes for free in this world. What will you give me if I spin this straw into gold?" The miller's daughter thought quickly. She had very little to offer, but she was wearing a simple necklace that had belonged to her mother. It was not valuable, just a cord with a small carved wooden pendant, but it meant a great deal to her. Still, her life was at stake, and she needed help desperately. "I can give you my necklace," she said. The little man examined it, seemed satisfied, and nodded. "A fair trade," he declared. He sat down at the spinning wheel, and his small hands moved so fast they were almost a blur. The wheel spun and spun, and amazingly, impossibly, the straw began transforming into gleaming golden thread that spooled onto the wheel. The miller's daughter watched in astonishment as pile after pile of straw disappeared and was replaced by spools of pure gold. By the time dawn began to lighten the sky, every bit of straw had been transformed, and the room glittered with gold thread. The little man took the necklace, gave her a peculiar little bow, and vanished just as mysteriously as he had appeared. When the king unlocked the door and saw the room filled with gold, his eyes grew wide with greed and amazement. "Remarkable!" he exclaimed. "Absolutely remarkable!" But instead of releasing the miller's daughter as she had hoped, he led her to an even larger room, this one filled with even more straw. "If you can do it once, you can do it again," he said. "Spin all the straw into gold by morning, and I will reward you greatly. But if you fail, the punishment will be severe." Once again, he locked the door and left. The miller's daughter felt despair wash over her again. She had nothing else to bargain with, no way to complete this impossible task. But just as before, the strange little man appeared in the locked room. "What will you give me this time?" he asked with that knowing smile. The young woman looked down at her hands and saw the simple ring she wore, a plain band that had been her grandmother's. It was all she had left to value. "My ring," she said quietly. The little man accepted it gladly and set to work once more. When the little man returned on the first evening, the queen began reading names from her lists. "Is it Caspar? Is it Melchior? Is it Balthazar?" She read common names and uncommon names, old-fashioned names and new names, simple names and complicated names. But to each one, the little man smiled and shook his head. "No, that's not my name," he said again and again, seeming to enjoy the game. On the second day, the queen sent her most trusted messenger on a special mission. "Go into the deepest parts of the forest," she instructed, "to places where few people ever travel. Search everywhere and listen for anything unusual." The messenger rode for hours, going deeper into the wild forest than he had ever been before. As evening approached, he was about to turn back when he heard a strange sound in the distance. Following the sound through the trees, he came upon a tiny cottage in a clearing he had never seen before. Outside the cottage, a small fire burned, and dancing around the fire was the oddest little man the messenger had ever seen. The little man was singing a song to himself, his voice high and gleeful, completely unaware that anyone was watching. The messenger crept closer and listened carefully to the words of the song. "Today I brew, tomorrow I bake, the next day the queen's child I'll take. How glad I am that nobody knows that Rumpelstiltskin is my name." The messenger's heart leaped with excitement. He had found the answer. He turned his horse around and rode back to the palace as fast as he could, arriving just before midnight. When he told the queen what he had discovered, she felt hope flood through her for the first time in days. She spent that whole night rehearsing what she would say and how she would say it, wanting to get it exactly right. The next evening, when the little man appeared for the third and final time, he was smiling confidently. "Well, Your Majesty," he said with obvious satisfaction, "this is your last chance. What is my name?" The queen, clever as she had always been, decided to make him wait. "Is it Tom? Is it Dick? Is it Harry?" she asked, pretending to still be guessing. The little man shook his head to each name, his smile growing wider. "Is it Frederick? Is it Sebastian? Is it Bartholomew?" Still he shook his head, beginning to laugh now, thinking he had one. Then the queen looked directly at him and spoke clearly and confidently. "Perhaps your name is Rumpelstiltskin?" The little man's face changed instantly. His eyes grew wide, his mouth fell open, and his entire body seemed to shake with rage. "The devil told you that!" he shrieked. "The devil told you that!" He stamped his foot so hard on the floor that it went straight through the wooden boards. In his fury and frustration, he grabbed his other foot with both hands and pulled so hard that he tore himself in two, and that was the end of Rumpelstiltskin. The queen held her baby close, relief and joy washing over her. She was free from her promise, her child was safe, and she had solved the impossible problem through cleverness and determination. She rewarded the messenger who had discovered the name generously and sent word to her father that all was well, though she made sure he understood that his boasting had nearly cost them everything. Years passed, and the queen never forgot the lessons she had learned during those difficult days. She taught her son, who grew up to be a wise prince, that cleverness and quick thinking could solve problems that seemed impossible. She taught him to think creatively, to search for solutions in unexpected places, and to never give up even when situations seemed hopeless. She also taught him to be very careful about making promises, to think before speaking, and to understand that sometimes we must be resourceful and clever to escape from troubles that others create for us. The queen established schools throughout the kingdom where children could learn not just reading and writing, but also problem-solving and creative thinking. She believed that cleverness was a gift everyone could develop, not just something you were born with. She encouraged people to use their minds, to think of new solutions to old problems, and to never accept that something was impossible just because it had never been done before. She also spoke honestly with her son about the mistakes that had been made. She explained how his grandfather's foolish boasting had created an impossible situation, how she had made a desperate promise she should never have made, and how only through clever investigation and resourceful thinking had they found a way out. "Sometimes," she told him, "we find ourselves in difficult situations through no fault of our own, or because we made mistakes when we were frightened or desperate. The important thing is to keep thinking, keep searching for solutions, and use all the cleverness and creativity we possess." The story of how the queen had outwitted Rumpelstiltskin spread throughout the kingdom and beyond. It became a tale that parents told their children, not to frighten them but to inspire them. It taught that even when problems seem impossible, even when you feel trapped with no way out, cleverness and determination can find solutions. It showed that sometimes the answer to a problem requires investigation and hard work, sending messengers to search and listening carefully to discover the information you need. The queen's son grew up understanding that his mother's greatest strength was not magic or supernatural power, but her intelligence and resourcefulness. When he faced his own challenges as he grew older, he remembered her example. When problems arose that seemed to have no solution, he would think creatively, search thoroughly, and never give up. He learned that cleverness meant not just being smart but being persistent, willing to look in unexpected places, and brave enough to keep trying even when success seemed unlikely. The old spinning wheel that had stood in those rooms full of straw was kept in the palace as a reminder of those eventful days. But the real gold that came from that experience was not the treasure in the king's vaults. It was the wisdom the queen gained and passed down to future generations. She learned that cleverness is more valuable than gold, that a sharp mind can overcome almost any obstacle, and that the willingness to think creatively and search persistently for solutions is one of the most powerful tools any person can possess. And so the kingdom prospered under rulers who valued intelligence and creative thinking as much as wealth and power. The people learned that when they faced problems, whether large or small, they should think carefully, investigate thoroughly, and never assume that something cannot be solved. The legacy of the queen who outwitted Rumpelstiltskin lived on in a culture that celebrated cleverness, rewarded resourcefulness, and understood that often the best treasure we can possess is a mind that refuses to give up and continues searching until it finds the answer.